All right. There are very few reasons to do an emergency podcast in the middle of the night on a now Sunday morning, 2 a.m. Sunday morning on the East Coast. But today is one of them. Uh, Luka Doncic is a Dallas Maverick no more. The Mavericks pulling off a middle of the night, days before the trade deadline deal that sent Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers. Rachel Nichols joining me here, as always, on the show, as flabbergasted as I am by all this. I want to read off the particulars first, Rachel, before we unpack the many layers to the story. But the Lakers, they get Luka Doncic, the crown jewel of this deal. They also get Maxi Kleber, Markieff Morris. The Mavericks, they get Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and the 2029 Lakers first round pick. The Jazz kind of weaseled their way in at the 11th hour to collect a couple of second round picks and Jalen Hood Schifino as part of this. So, big picture, just give me your original reaction to this deal going down.
There's so many things I don't understand. I mean, look, you and I have been covering this league for a long time. We've seen all kinds of trade, including middle of the night trade, right? Like I was in Las Vegas. I think you were too, when the deal went down for Kawhi Leonard and the earthquake happened at the same time. And we've seen some craziness happen with Kawhi and Paul George. What was it? Midnight, basically. Like we've seen a lot of this stuff, but this one, it might be the most surprising I can think of. I'm thinking back through the last 30 years. It might be the most surprising because if anything seemed to be a sure thing, it was that the Dallas Mavericks would hold on to Luka Doncic, right? They got incredibly lucky that they got traded that pick when they shouldn't have ever been able to make that trade and get him. They got incredibly lucky that he turned into everything that everyone thought he would be as a teenager. And the idea that they would just trade him away at all is so perplexing. But then on top of it, what they got for him, look, I think Anthony Davis has even more potential than he's shown. You and I've talked about that all year. I think there is room for him to continue to grow. But what about all the picks that we keep seeing other teams get? I mean, you got more for Rudy Gobert, you got more for Mikal Bridges. Like, I get it, getting an all NBA level star kind of negates some of that, but all of it? I mean, it's just mind-boggling to me. How did this happen?
It's easily the most shocking trade that I can remember, and I'm not. Wasn't covering the league in the 90s or the 80s. Maybe there were some more shocking deals that went down, but easily the most shocking deal I can remember. Luka Doncic is a 25-year-old franchise player with a year and a half remaining on his contract, who is the biggest of no-brainers to give the Supermax deal to. Like, no question about it. Not only does he deserve the Supermax deal now, he probably deserves another one in 5 years when he's 30. Like,
Of
he's
course.
that talented. It was stunning. And the immediate question is why? And we've seen some reporting early in the evening, courtesy of ESPN, our friend Tim McMahon, who was
Man who's super plugged into that team.
plugged in with the Mavericks. He got a hold of Nico Harrison, whose first answer to him when the trade went down when asked about the trade was that I believe defense wins championships, which okay, sure, it does win championships, but this Dallas Mavericks team just went to the finals with the 18th ranked defense in the NBA last year. They did not go 7 games with anybody in the Western Conference playoffs. They lost to Boston, but if you go back and watch that series, defense was not the reason they lost that series. They lost that series because nobody outside Kyrie and Luka could score. And,
Yes.
and that team wasn't ready for the moment, whereas the Celtics had been clawing their way to get to that point for the last 6 years. That doesn't make any sense to me. And you go out there and you trade for Anthony Davis, who does, fill that defensive need in the middle, who does have a great relationship with Kyrie Irving. I can remember talking about AD and Kyrie teaming up in Boston back in 18-19 when, the Celtics were still dangling Jaylen Brown out there for trade talks. I get all that. But
This is where we say Kyrie Irving is 32 years old.
right, both Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis turned 32 in March. So they're 32 years old, basically. what you're doing is basically creating what I think is a 2-year window to contend for a championship. And I still look, this team as currently constituted with a healthy AD is really good, right? Like, I mean, if they get all their pieces back, right? You have some kind of backcourt rotation with Klay Thompson and Spencer Dinwiddie. Derek Lively's out for a while, but whenever he comes back, AD can play next to a five. It's what he wants to do
Right.
anyway. You can compete with that team. But in 2 years, when AD is probably starting to erode as a player, when Kyrie is probably eroding even more as a player, you're going to be looking just to the west, 1,000 miles or whatever it is west, at Luka Doncic in his prime, and I don't get that. To get AD and just that one first round pick, which by the way might not be that great. Like we used to
No,
look at these Lakers picks the last couple of years saying, oh, 29 and 31, those are guaranteed to be great picks. Now we
Luca
got
and
Luka.
LeBron.
Luka's like a human, like a one man 500 at least. That's the
Yes.
kind of the floor for Luka. Now you're looking at maybe a mid range first round pick. The return, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, Rachel.
No, Klay Thompson is 34. Kyrie is 32. AD, as you say, is right in that age range. Like, teams kill for a 25-year-old superstar. I mean, look, I think Nico Harrison pulled off some great moves last year. I happen to also really like him as a person, frankly, to be
Same,
honest. And I
same.
know you do too. Like, he's just super well liked around the league. I don't distrust him inherently. I just don't understand what he's doing. And I hope he gives Mavericks fans more than just defense wins championships, because this is a huge sort of, I mean, everything the Mavericks have asked their fans to do for the last 7 years is root for Luka Doncic and have faith in Luka Doncic. And Luka is our guy, and he is going to lead us into the future. And I just keep thinking of what Mark Cuban said. And obviously, Mark is not in charge of this team anymore. And I want to ask you a little bit about how you think that affects
Mhm.
everything. But Mark Cuban saying when Luka came on board, like, I'm never going to make the mistake that I made with Steve Nash, right? He said that was a mistake I regretted for the rest of my NBA life, and I'm never going to make that mistake again. And I just kind of, this is just so stunning. A, in terms of why a team, a franchise gifted this star of this age and this potential would do this, but also a franchise and a team where Dallas is obviously, it's not a small market by any sense, but it is a market where, yes, I guess they have no income tax, but they're not raking in free agents. This hasn't been a
Quite the
time,
opposite. How many? They
right?
went like a decade. Remember, like the Dwight Howard almost went there. Chris
Yes.
Paul almost went there. Like they went a decade not landing the big free agent.
Right? So you can't count on that in the future. So to be gifted one of these guys, when again, you shouldn't have even been able to draft for him. It was the incompetence of other franchises, of Sacramento with Vlade Divac not liking Luka's dad, with Atlanta deciding to make the trade for Trey. Like, it's just sort of a kind of thing where I can't believe they got him in the first place. And then to turn around and be like, here you go. I don't know. Is this a fear of Oklahoma City going forward? Is this a fear of Wemby and the Spurs going forward? That if you don't feel like you make a run right now, you have no window to from 2 years from now to
But they
7 years
did
from now?
just make a run. They did just they're
I'm
coming off a trip
trying,
to the finals here.
Chris. I am trying to come up with a reason. There is no good reason I can think of right now.
The so in the immediate aftermath, a lot more stuff has come up about Luka's conditioning issues, and this has
Yes.
been a long standing thing with Dallas and Luka Doncic. He is the perpetual dad bod, is what he is. And I remember seeing some stuff from him in August, September, where he didn't look that great. I remember
Mhm.
texting and calling some people down in Dallas saying, "You guys worried about this?" And then he shows up at camp, but he was actually in good shape when he came to
Yeah.
camp this time around. The reports are that he's regressed since then. I didn't even know that was possible. I thought the offseason is when you kind of, ate your way out of shape, not,
Mhm.
in the middle of playing 35 minutes per game. But, you know, according to the reports, like that was a concern for the Mavericks, and it concerned them enough that they were a little wary of giving him a supermax deal, which is just bonkers. Like every team in the league, every team, I mean it, 29 other teams would have been willing to give him a supermax deal. And you mentioned Mark Cuban, and look, let's be real. Mark Cuban is the exiled owner. Like he's
Yes.
still a minority owner of that team, but contrary to what he had hoped would happen when he made the sale to the Adelson family, he is not involved in the day-to-day decision making.
No.
This was a deal done primarily by Nico Harrison with the blessing of the Adelsons, Patrick Dumont, the governor of
Hmm.
that team. So, Mark Cuban is on the outs. It's just speculation. I can't for 1 minute believe Mark Cuban would okay a deal like this.
No.
Not for one split second would I believe that. I just don't. Mark Cuban, for all the reasons you just laid out there, would have no interest in trading away Luka Doncic. The other part of this is like it was just done so in such a clandestine way, right? Like this was clearly a deal that was done between the Lakers and the Mavs. Nico Harrison, Rob Pelinka, they've got a relationship dates back to the Nike days, where Kobe was there and Rob was Kobe's agent. I've heard from half a dozen NBA team execs who had no idea this was going down,
Right.
just shocked by all of it, and wondering, in the next breath, like, why was this not put out to the rest of the league? Like if you're going to make Luka Doncic available, why not let him become available? Like, why not see what you can get for him from the 20 other teams that might be interested in him? Like, just, who knows? Maybe they still would have settled on the Lakers deal. Maybe that's still what they wanted.
Maybe it would have
But
been more expensive though.
but it's a fact that there were a lot of teams, and I haven't talked to all of them, but there were a lot of teams that had no idea this was going down and no idea that there was even a chance Luka would be available.
How many, I mean, think about all the teams that are either close-ish or want to hang on to something. I mean, look, it's too mind-boggling to even think how would he fit into the Warriors? How would he fit into other teams that are desperate to just make it back to that level or are near that level? Who, Minnesota would have given up anyone but Ant. I mean, like, think about the number of teams that would have said, great, anyone on our roster but our star. Like, go. You have everyone else. I have one guy I'm protecting. Everyone else. And some teams that would have said, take anyone. You
Yeah.
go for it. Take anyone you want. And I understand that getting an Anthony Davis, who is obviously an elite player, back is unusual in this league. You're normally, as our friend Brian Windhorst says, trading a actual dollar for 4 quarters, and you don't quite ever get back the value.
There's never actually been, I think, two all NBA players traded for each other in season or something to that effect. Some like Elias stat that I read online, but
But I would argue you're still not getting the value, Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, Anthony Davis, who again, I think could do even better than he has done before. We've been talking about this all year. He still is not 25 years old. He still has had his own injury history. I can only imagine there is something behind the scenes with Luka, his conditioning, the way he has responded to authority there on the team, any of these reasons that they have decided to move on. I can't think of one that would be good enough. But again, I think Nico is a really smart guy. He's not an idiot. So like there must be something there behind the scenes that we don't know.
Yeah, but
But given
even
that, how do you not open it up to the league and get twice as much for him? And I guess I don't know, you tell me, Chris, like is it the idea that if it got out that Luka was on the trading block, the sort of, discomfort around the team and Luka would be so crazy that you couldn't deal with it, but he's not even playing right now anyway.
I don't care if Luka looks like Peter Griffin right now. I still wouldn't trade him at age 25. Like it's not the same thing as Zion, but it's like because Luka's far more accomplished than Zion.
I was gonna say,
Even in his whatever physical state, he is still first team All NBA the last 5 years. Like he's still elite. He's not a great defensive player, but he was good enough to get this team through the Western Conference Finals and into the finals, where their biggest problem, again, was not having another scorer. It wasn't defense. I don't know. There's just going to be a lot of things that need to be answered over the next couple of days. I do want to touch on the Lakers side of this. It's also fascinating here too, right? Like the Lakers, who are kind of rolling right now. They go into New York to beat the Knicks without Anthony Davis. They make this deal, and just to be clear, I would do this deal 7 days a week and twice on Sunday.
yes,
Right? No question about it. That being
100%.
said, it does not make them better in the short term.
You don't think so?
Like it just doesn't. Like they're already a bottom third defensive team in the league right now. You
Yes.
take out Anthony Davis, and I was kind of playing with the depth chart there a little bit. Like Jackson Hayes now becomes like your starting big opposite Rui Hashimura.
You've got to
plug
think
Luke-
they're not done, right? I mean, they still have
But
a
they
ton of capital because they barely had to give up any for
well
Luka.
that assumes that they had a ton of capital to begin with, right? Like they still
They've got
could
what, two more
you
picks,
well
right?
look, here's what you do now. Here's what my first thought was. You now like Austin Reeves is now expendable. Like
Mm-hmm.
you had Austin Reeves there. You didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to deal him. He was a big part of what you do. Now you got Luka basically playing the same position.
Yes.
Um, you are a little more free to deal Austin Reeves if you want. You've still got another draft pick that you could potentially deal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if there's a transformative deal that gets back what they lost defensively to put them in the mix this season. And I got to wonder what LeBron James is thinking about this. Because if you believe some of the reporting that's out there, David McMenamin was first on all this. LeBron had
Mm-hmm.
no idea that this was going down. And
I
Anthony Davis
completely
had no
believe
idea.
it. I completely believe it. I 100% believe it. I mean, I just, it's shocking. I completely believe it. And the way Anthony Davis has been talking for just the last few days about what he wants the Lakers to acquire and who he wants the Lakers to acquire does not sound like a guy who knew he was on the trading block. Now, I did think it was interesting that the reporting so far has been he's been willing to waive his trade kicker. And what do you
Mm.
think that indicates?
I mean, I think maybe once he knew it was going down, and I look, I do think there is that relationship with Kyrie. I don't know all the financial implications of going from playing in California 41 times a year to
13% tax
Texas,
difference,
but
baby.
I'm sure it's a big number.
Says the girl who lives in California.
I know the number he's going to make back anyway. So I don't know why he would do that. It obviously helps the Mavericks considerably that he did. My thing is like, all right, look again, maybe a week from now, and we're talking again. Like, there's another big on the roster that is like, oh no, it's all unlocked now. We've kind of
Mhm.
got it all figured out. Um, but right now, they don't look like a contending team. In fact, like I was texting with somebody in the Laker organization, like I was like, you guys are gonna have to score 200 points to win games. They're like, no, 175 is probably good.
Right,
Like,
right.
so like, I mean, there's the acknowledgement that they're not a good defensive team right now. Do you think there's any chance in the next 6 days? You know where I'm going with this. That they go to LeBron and be like, all right, well, this is Laker 2.0, right? Like,
Right.
you know, we are a star organization. Jerry West,
Of
Magic,
course. No, I
Shaq,
mean, this is a
Kobe,
no-brainer for Jeannie Buss. I don't
no
even
brainer
know
whatsoever. Like, we
if
now have the guy,
JJ Redick was on board, but I absolutely know that Rob has just kept his job for the next 5 years, and that Jeannie was all in on this one.
JJ Redick. They were teammates, right? For a
Yeah.
cup of coffee in
I
Dallas,
mean,
right? Yeah.
JJ
So,
was teammates with everyone, I
yeah,
think.
I know exactly. Do you think there's any chance, and again, this is all just speculation, that the Lakers talk to LeBron and be like, listen, if you really want to go to Golden State, like, should we? This might be the time to go ahead and figure it out because unless they can bring somebody substantive in, and even if they can, I don't know if you can get your act together in time this year, and next year could be the LeBron James swan song. I don't. What do you do here?
Okay, so let me ask you a question. If you had your pick of anyone in the league to then come into this team, either instead of or alongside LeBron James and Luka Doncic, who would it be? Who would be the fit next to Luka, LeBron or no, who you say would make this team a contender if you don't think they are now? Which I'm not sure I agree with you with, but
You
I
don't
do
agree
agree
with me,
about
like,
the
but
defense.
who are they stopping? Like,
I agree. I'm just not sure in today's NBA. That's his whole thing about defense wins championships. I don't know if I agree with that anymore. I
no, and
mean,
that's somebody texted me that. Somebody sent me another GM sent me the same text. Like, it's not 2002.
it's
Um,
not. Like, I'm sorry. I mean, how did the Boston Celtics win? I mean, obviously
I
they
mean,
were
they were
great
top five though
defenders.
defensively.
I
Like the
get
Nuggets,
it,
the
but it's
Nuggets are an
not what won
example.
them the title
Yeah.
was, it's not their historic offense, their historic three-point rate. I mean, this is the Celtics last year were scoring more than anyone has ever scored. Like this is a different NBA, but who would it be? I just want to know if Rob Pelinka could work out a deal that either did or didn't involve LeBron, who would it be that you would feel comfortable coming in that would make this team a contender?
I don't know. I don't know who that big. It's got to be a big. You can't
Right?
have this court rotation of Jackson Hayes, Christian Coloco, Christian Wood if he comes back, Rui Hashimura, like Jared Vanderbilt. Like it just doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. I
So
also
who's
don't
up
know
there?
like
Who would
what
you
I don't
want?
know what this deal does for like apron situations. Like how much more difficult does it make a deal to make? You're taking on a big contract, even though you're giving up a big contract. Uh,
I
I
mean, if
don't
you
know. I
gave
don't
up
know
a
who that.
LeBron contract, you could get pretty much, but when you say, "Oh, hey, we'll let you go to Golden State," or maybe now is the time, wink, wink, you should go to Golden State. Who are they getting back? They're not getting anyone back from Golden State that's going to make the difference.
No, you're basically
So who's the
you're
third
rebooting
team?
it. You're
Okay,
you're in a
but
way rebooting it, right? Like you're kind of saying to Golden State, like, we'll take the Andrew Wiggins contract and give us Kaminga and I don't know, like
they're
some
better
other
off with
piece.
LeBron, dude. What do
But
you
you're
think the
but
box office on that is?
but this is a deal for the next 5 years, right? It's
Great.
not.
So in 2 years, when LeBron's done, they'll bring in a center. I'm just saying that if you are the Lakers, you are not turning down a year and a half or however long it is of the LeBron and Luka show. You are in. I do not believe in any way, shape, or form they are going to encourage or ask LeBron to leave. I think this is a dream if you're in the LA market. I think the NBA actually might not be as happy with this because they are going to go from LA having great ratings and Dallas having pretty good ratings when they're on because people like watching Luka
Mm,
to now everyone being concentrated on one team, their big stars, is not good for NBA ratings. So
mm.
I'm curious what sort of the league perspective is on this from the rating standpoint, especially since we have to remember the beginning of this season, NBA ratings fell 30%. They have been falling since LeBron came to the Lakers, in part because the Lakers used to always get ratings and LeBron and Cleveland got ratings, and then they took LeBron and put him on the team they were already getting ratings for. Well, this is another example of that with Luka. And I'm very curious what happens overall to the NBA ecosystem TV wise with Luka now on this team because Lakers always they always get good ratings for the Lakers, but now they're not getting as good ratings for Dallas games. I guarantee you that.
Can you all right, walk me through your argument of that the Lakers are a better team short term? Because this is what I don't see. Like I just don't see how this mix without another substantive deal is any better than the team that right now is actually playing pretty well. They're like 9 games
Yeah.
over 500. On this good East Coast trip. Like, how are they a better team short term?
So I think they're a different team, right? I'm not sure they're better, but I'm also not sure this takes them back because this is an offense first league now. I think that either of these guys, especially Luka, can get hot to a degree that we rarely see. LeBron still has shown. I mean, he's been one of their backbones through this stretch. I mean, a triple double again tonight. Um, I think that you have a higher percentage chance of incendiary magic with this lineup and then a lower percentage chance of consistency. So, is that going to get them to advance an extra round or two in the Western Conference playoffs? Maybe. Is that going to get them to win the finals? I don't think so. But I do think that the Lakers will now have an asset for years to come that will benefit them, assuming he stays healthy, assuming there's not a conditioning problem, assuming there's not some big secret issue that Dallas knows about that the rest of us don't. It just, I go back to this sounds insane.
Yeah, and somebody in LA when I was asking about this deal was like, well, we're hoping that LeBron's professionalism can rub off a little bit on Luca. Um, maybe, like I mean, like I'm assuming they mean by that the conditioning part of it, like staying in shape all the time, staying locked in all the time. My thing on the short term though, like JJ spent his entire offseason building an offense around Anthony Davis.
Yes.
And now you're bringing in a guy that does everything different, right? He's
Yep.
not a post player, well, at least not traditionally. He's ball dominant. He's just
Yep.
he's a unique talent, and it's tough to find anyone that can play well opposite Luka Doncic. It took the Mavericks years to find the right mix. Kyrie turned out to be the right guy to play
Yep.
opposite Luka.
And only Kyrie at this age. Kyrie
Yeah,
10 years ago would not have been the right guy.
so I don't know. This is one of those things where like Luka's expected to come back either before or after the All Star break. Um, it just doesn't feel like there's enough time to kind of mesh these guys together in 35 games or whatever it is before they can get down and finish the season.
Here's what I'll say about the professionalism angle. First of all, I get it. Luca's not an ideal sort of workout. He's the first one in the gym every day and all of that stuff. He is a pro. I mean, he's been a pro since he was like 11, right? I mean,
Mhm.
he is definitely not someone who's a problem in terms of, oh man, he's getting in trouble off the court all the time. Like so many things that we associate with, oh man, he needs some more professionalism. So we're talking about degrees here. But the other thing is, Luka Doncic is not J.R. Smith, right? I spent plenty of time around, I was living in New York around the Knicks and then also doing a lot of reporting in Cleveland when JR went to Cleveland. And there was definitely, unquestionably, a way that LeBron rubbed off on JR
Hmm.
and basically took him under his wing and said, "This is how we do this here, and this is how you will be." And JR bought it, hook, line, and sinker to his benefit, and he became a better player and a better teammate because of it. Luka Doncic is not J.R. Smith. Luka Doncic is a superstar in his own right, who again has been a superstar since he was a teenager, even younger than LeBron James was a superstar. He is his own person. He is a husband with a child, and he is not someone who is just going to show up at the gym early because LeBron does. I just don't buy that. Do you?
No, I think you're probably right. Yeah, I think that's the missing element though with Luca, like the consistently staying in shape, consistently taking care of his body. It's obviously something that was troubling the Mavericks. Whether it was worth them offloading him or not is an entirely separate conversation. But that was obviously a lingering issue with them. The way I look at with LeBron to kind of put a button on all this is like, I'm gonna just assume he's probably got like 18 months left in his career, right? Like
Sure.
I feel like next year will
Although
probably
this could
be.
extend it, honestly.
You're more bullish on the short term. Like, again, I do this deal every day of the week if I'm the Lakers. You get a guy that's going to take you into the next generation. I just think it's going to take time to build that winning formula around him. And I'm not so sure that LeBron, like, he was really tight with AD. If it's true he didn't have any idea this deal was going down, like, I don't know. I just don't
Okay,
know.
but here's the thing. Luca will take over the team in a way Anthony Davis showed that he could not. The whole idea with the Lakers and AD coming in once LeBron got here in LA was great. This is going to be an amazing transition from a guy who's 9 years younger to slowly have it be his team, and then LeBron gets to play the role of wily veteran who gets to come in, doesn't have to carry the club, et cetera, et cetera. Anthony never did that. And there's an argument that that's not his fault, that like living in LeBron's shadow, LeBron was not ready to let go of the rope, no matter how much he said he was. And that Anthony, who is a great guy, but not like the most sort of charismatic, in your face, kind of, I want to be in front of the cameras all the time guy, he's not. And he would tell you that wasn't able to wrest that away from LeBron. Luka Doncic is a force, man, and he is going to think that he has ownership of this team a lot more so than I think, in my opinion, Anthony Davis ever would. And so I do think LeBron might have the opportunity to extend his career a little bit because I think he kind of wants someone to take that role. Don't you, after being around him these last couple of
I
years?
do. I do. And I'm sure that there's a part of LeBron that wishes AD did more of that in the
Mhm.
last couple of years. I just I don't know how you piece it together in 18 months. I just don't know how. Like this to me, I think because Luka's probably going to be out for a little while anyway. Then you got to work him into the rotation. I think they're going to take a step back. I think they'll lose more games than they win down the stretch, uh, and just have a lot of problems beating top tier teams. Now maybe after an off season next year, they make some deals. Uh, they might be able to put together a team that can compete for whatever. But that's a big if. And then again, like there's part of me that wonders, like, did they go to LeBron this week and be like, you know what, man, if you really want to play with Steph, like we might be able to make that happen. And then we just kind of reboot the whole thing around Luca, around Kaminga, around some of the guys that we can get back. We're the Lakers. We can get guys
But
to
they
come
went to
there.
him this summer and said that.
A little
They
bit. I
went to
mean,
him
now
this summer and
this
he
feels
nixed
like
the
this
deal.
feels different though. Like this feels different. Like yeah, they still needed to add pieces to the AD core. But this just feels like you're just completely shaking up the chalkboard, the etch a sketch here. Like you're just wild,
I
just
mean,
wild
it's a crazy trade. It's crazy in the middle of nowhere. If he actually went on the block and there was a bidding war for him, what do you think the deal would have been?
for
What
Luca.
sort of could he command? Yeah.
I mean, look, like you said, more than Rudy Gobert, more than Mikal
Well,
Bridges.
okay.
Um,
So
you can't get everything you want out of a deal like the Jazz and the Knicks. Obviously, or the Nets prioritize draft picks and getting those
mhm.
guys back. That's why they got as many as they did. But you should be able to get at least, like, you should have got at least that other first too, like the
Yes.
2031 first round
Don't you
pick.
think?
Yeah, like you should have gotten two firsts for a
Give me
transcendent
every
talent.
first you have and Anthony Davis. I mean, isn't that the answer?
And if you can do it, I don't even know if you can do the swap rights, anything. Like you just You think about what some of like what Oklahoma City
Oklahoma
was
City
doing.
got
Yeah.
for Paul George. I mean,
For
this is
Russell Westbrook,
Luka
right up more for Russell
Doncic.
Westbrook than, I don't know. This is crazy. Like this is a career maker or breaker for Nico Harrison. Like if they
It
wind up winning
is.
a championship this year, who knows? Then,
Okay.
they did it. Congratulations. But if 2 years from now, AD's playing like 50 games and Kyrie's playing 45 because they're older and banged up and that happens. And
And,
meanwhile, Luka's taken off in LA. That's
and
just
Clay's retired, by the way, at that
Clay
point.
is retired at the very end. Like again, this feels like a 2 year window. Like they're giving themselves. And you can't even say that because you can't say they got better because they traded Luka Doncic. Like they traded an all time great who led them to the finals like a year ago. They lost 5 games in the conference playoffs. Like 5 games. Crazy.
I mean,
Absolutely.
they were not on that track right now, obviously. But then
No,
again,
but I
they
mean, but
weren't
then
on
not
that
as much to
track
do with
at this
injury as anything
time
else.
last
Like,
year.
but
Remember
I mean,
last year?
this year's an injury issue, right? Like they were all banged up this year. Like
Hmm.
starting with Luka, only played 22 games for them. So,
Yeah.
um, this year felt like a lost year. I remember talking to guys down there, being like, every time
Hmm.
they showed up at practice, somebody new was out, right?
Yeah.
It's like Kleber just went out with that basically season-ending injury. Um, this year felt kind of snake bitten for them, but the reaction, I don't know if it should be let's trade Luka Doncic. And
By the way,
it,
Luca back with Dorian Finney-Smith.
it's that should do the trick. That should make it happen. All right, Rachel, I appreciate you getting up and knocking this podcast out with me. We will reconvene after the trade deadline, which can't get any
Yes.
wilder than this. So hopefully some more news to talk about then.